From A&E, this is Biography.
The film studios of the 1930s produced lavish musicals to help a discontented populace escape its troubles. Desperate for new faces, Hollywood talent scouts scoured nightclubs and dance halls across the country.
Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, Miss Ann Miller, our new dancing discovery. We found this lady in a nightclub in San Francisco. It wasn't exactly a nightclub, it was downstairs. It was an upholstered manhole.
Her mother said your belly button is the source of your energy. So anytime you start to feel a little tired or something like that, just point to your belly button and it'll give you that extra little pizzazz that you need.
Ann Miller's exuberant energy and machine gun style made her an instant hit with audiences.
Ann Miller would walk on the stage and the audience would instantly go, and the smile would happen, you know? She just makes you smile.
After her standout performance in RKO's New Faces of 1937, the studio quickly offered her a 7-year contract. Hungry for a career in films and a $150 a week paycheck, Ann Miller signed on the dotted line. However, there was one minor problem.
I lied and said I was 18, and I had to stick to that lie. And I just stayed 18 for like 5 years.
With the aid of a falsified birth certificate procured by her lawyer father, Ann joined the roster of RKO stars. They quickly thrust her into the role of leading ingenue. Ann Miller was playing dress-up in a grown-up world, but she was only 13 years old. Film history books state that Ann Miller was born on April 12, 1919 in Chirino, Texas. She was not. She was born April 12, 1923 in Houston, Texas, to John Alfred Collier, a criminal defense lawyer, and his wife, Clara Emma Birdwell. She was named Johnny Lucille Collier because her father had wanted a boy.
She's just a Texas girl. She says that a lot. I'm from Texas, you know.
John Collier was a charming Irishman who loved to dance and had an eye for the ladies. Clara Collier was part Cherokee Indian, a devoted mother and wife, and almost completely deaf.
She had a wonderful mother, whom Annie looks like. Beautiful woman.
She tried to make me a ballerina, and I didn't like it. Maybe it's my Indian blood, I don't know, but I like tap dancing. And the minute I heard drums, I just took off. Boom, da da boom, da da boom, I just took off. So that's the way it's been ever since.
As a youngster, Lucy snuck into movie theaters to watch Astaire and Rogers dance. She thought Ginger Rogers was the most beautiful creature she'd ever seen. It was in the darkened movie theater that Lucy Collier decided to become a star. In the summer of 1934, she and her mother vacationed in Hollywood, where Lucy enrolled in the famous Fanchon and Marco dancing school and registered with Central Casting.
I don't know who would have stopped Anne. You know, what she did was encourage the young little girl that had all that great talent, and she was a brilliant dancer, and she sang like mad. So the mother didn't thwart that. The mother said, go ahead, baby. You know, she didn't. She was not a stage mother.
When the summer ended, mother and daughter returned to their Houston home and John Collier.
I knew that my father was not being faithful to my mother. I just knew it by instinct. One afternoon, my mother and myself came a little earlier than we had planned, and my father was in bed with not a lady, some woman, and when I looked up in the window, I saw this apparition, this Fanny in the window, and I pushed my mother out of the way. I didn't want her to see it. And I was the one. Here I am, 9 years old, you know. But I walked in, opened the door, and I said, get out of my mother's home.
Lucy and Clara piled their belongings into the car and returned to California, this time to stay. They found a tiny one-room kitchenette in Hollywood and sold the car to pay the rent. Clara's hearing impairment made it impossible for her to hold down a job.
I knew I was going to take care of my mother because my father wasn't going to do it. He wouldn't even send us any money.
I think that Annie became Clara's mother. I think she took care of her mother, and the roles got switched.
One Christmas, we didn't have anything to eat, and the landlady knocked on our door, and she brought this beautiful chocolate cake. I'll never forget this. As long as I live, she brought this gorgeous chocolate cake, and we thanked her profusely, and that's what we had for our dinner, was this chocolate cake.
Help came in the form of George Morgan, owner of Morgan's Dance Shop on Sunset Boulevard. He gave Lucy a pair of white Oxfords with long taps and jingles on the heels. Lucy named them Mo and Joe. Mr. Morgan allowed Lucy to practice in the shop on his tap board. Soon Lucy was getting jobs entertaining at luncheons for the Elks, Lions, and Rotary clubs. One day, her pianist, Harry Field, suggested she change her name to something easy, like Ann Miller. Clara had the numerology of the name done and decided it would bring them luck. At the age of 11, Johnny Lucille Collier became Ann Miller.
I think Annie always wanted to please Clara, you know. I think she wanted to please the non-existent dad, you know, the non-participating dad.
Ann got a regular job performing at the Black Cat Cafe. Patrons would throw change on the stage, and with a borrowed hat, she would get down on her hands and knees to pick up the money.
She's a worker, and she's too, energetic and curious, and she just loves the business, and loves to perform, and I think it's something that she just kind of has to do.
Soon after, 12-year-old Ann won an amateur talent contest, and the prize was a 2-week engagement at the Orpheum Theater. This led to bookings at Hollywood hotspots like the Casanova Club on the Sunset Strip. But she was never out of her mother's sight.
Clara was with her all the time.
My mother, I used to call her Mama Cat. She was so protective of me. I was her little kitty cat. And if anybody had tried to get around her, she'd hit them with a baseball bat. She wouldn't care who they were, because I was just too young.
She kept up with her education by doing lessons at home and sending them to the Hollywood Professional School. In 1936, Ann Miller uttered her first line of dialogue in the B film Devil on Horseback, starring Lily Damita. Ann's big break came when she was booked for 3 weeks at the Bal Tabarin Supper Club in San Francisco.
Bal Tabarin was the real good start. It was the place to go in San Francisco.
Ann's performance charmed comedian and talent scout Benny Rubin.
I'm sure Benny Rubin liked Annie Miller's performance. That came with great respect, because Benny Rubin didn't waste his time.
He told Ann if she could prove that she was 18 years old, he could get her a screen test for RKO Studios. Desperate for the opportunity, Ann asked for help from the one person she least wanted to approach.
My father, the only really good thing he ever did for me, later on, after they divorced, he got me a fake birth certificate, because I had to take it in to the head of RKO Studios, a lovely man by the name of Sam Briskin, and to prove that I was 18.
Ann's mother, Clara, gave the 13-year-old advice on how to act 18. Always dress impeccably, wear makeup, and keep your mouth shut. Armed with this wisdom, Ann Miller moved from the club stage to the sound stage. In 1937, while her contemporaries busied themselves with hopscotch, 14-year-old Ann Miller had signed a 7-year contract with RKO Studios. That same year, she won a small role in Gregory LaCava's Stage Door, starring Katharine Hepburn and her idol, Ginger Rogers.
When I heard there was supposed to be a girl that's going to be dancing with Ginger Rogers, I said, Mr. LaCava, please let me dance with Ginger. She's my idol. And he looked at me and he said, well, aren't you too tall? And I said, well, I can wear a higher top hat and a lower heel. You know, if she could put on a little higher heel and a little lower top hat. And Ginger started to laugh. And that's when she said, okay, String Bean, you got it. She didn't even wait for him to make the decision.
With Ann's success in Stage Door came the lead ingenue role in Radio City Revels. At 15 years of age, she had to kiss her co-star and crush, Kenny Baker. It was her first.
She does romanticize. That's part of being a kid.
In her next film, she played a married woman who can't dance in Frank Capra's You Can't Take It With You.
There's a likability to Annie, and you know you can't manufacture it. You could be a great singer, great dancer, great actress, but you can't bottle or create likability. She has that likability factor.
To capitalize on the success of You Can't Take It With You, the studio sent 15-year-old Anne on a cross-country tour. She danced 8 shows a day at movie houses before the pictures ran, leaving her little time for play or homework. Frustrated by the overwhelming workload and the refusal of RKO to give her a raise, Anne's agents got her released from her contract and sent her to New York to star in George White's Scandals of 1939. On August 28th of that year, Ann Miller stepped out on stage to do a number called The Mexicanga, her Broadway debut.
It was a conga. Mexicanga, and the Kimloo sisters set it up. And then Ann came on. She had a hat and a little bitty costume.
And they pounded the drums while I danced, and it just knocked everybody out.
She was a smash and a Broadway star at age 16. Now that's incredible, incredible.
And I was on cloud 9. Here I was, a kid. All this happening, and my mother was so thrilled. And I had my first taste of champagne that night.
I remember Ann backstage, I guess leaving for the evening, had the most beautiful lynx coat I had ever seen. She looked fantastic.
Wealthy stage door Johnnies wined and dined the new Broadway sensation. However, her mother always chaperoned. At the end of the evening, Anne would return to the hotel room and finish her school lessons.
From the Columbia Studios in Hollywood comes a miracle musical comedy with top stars of stage, screen, and radio topping their greatest performances.
Ann Miller returned to Hollywood after 2 years in the Scandals.
Time Out for Rhythm with Ann Miller.
During the shooting of the film Time Out for Rhythm, Ann Miller became an adult, legally. She turned 18 years old and completed her high school education. Her appearance in the film also won the attention of Harry Cohn. In 1941, Ann Miller signed her second 7-year contract, only this time for Columbia Studios. Ann established herself on the lot as the Queen of the Bees due to the success of her early wartime films with titles such as True to the Army, Hey Rookie, and Reveille with Beverly.
Thumbs up! Thumbs up!
Thumbs up and V
for victory!
On land or sea for victory. 10 million Yanks from Kankakee to Kalamazoo to Kokomo are ready to go. Let's keep Old Glory in the sky. A Yankee rainbow riding high. Roll up your sleeves and help the gal who carries a torch to hold it high. Whatever befalls, America calls. Thumbs up and V for victory.
Douglas MacArthur came home one afternoon after a lot of war, and Reveille with Beverly had just finished running for the boys. And he saw Thumbs Up and V for Victory, that number. And he said, put that picture on again. I want to see the entire thing. And the boys had to sit through that picture all over again while he sat back in the back watching it.
She was absolutely adorable. And she was, there you saw her comedic talent and her acting talent.
You know, it's funny, I never studied a lot of acting. I just thought acting was just being me.
Ann Miller had won more than the hearts of servicemen and generals. Her lust for fun and no-nonsense personality had won the hearts of fans, friends, and co-workers alike.
You have to love her for it because she calls it like it is. And when you're with her or away from her, you never have to guess what she thinks of you, because she'll tell you.
Anne began to enjoy the Hollywood nightlife. As a legal adult, she dated without her mother in tow, as long as she was home by midnight.
She is a party girl. Anne loves it. She loves it.
Unlike her contemporaries, Anne seldom dated fellow performers. She preferred wealthy playboys.
Annie's a very social person. I don't think Annie likes to be alone.
By late 1945, Ann Miller was tiring from a decade of hard work and sought relief through marriage.
I wanted to be like a lot of other girls and have a husband and have a child and to be able to go to parties and wear pretty things and wear perfume and feathers in my hair or whatever. I wanted to have a pretty house and everything beautiful. I'm thinking like Tinkerbell. I wanted everything to be beautiful.
Suitors besieged Anne with marriage proposals. Shoe tycoon Harry Carl, scrap iron heir Reese Milner, and even MGM mogul Louis B. Mayer all asked for Anne's hand. Anne's mother flatly refused Mr. Mayer's proposal, as Anne was 40 years his junior. Anne chose 33-year-old Reese Milner.
He was the type that was attractive to Annie, and she had every reason to think that it would be a good marriage.
Reese Milner told Anne that if she married him, she would never have to work again. Exactly what she wanted to hear. After playing breadwinner for so long, Anne wanted to be cared for. Still under contract to Columbia Studios, she had to ask Harry Cohn for her release.
I remember that Mr. Coyne advised me not to marry him, and in fact he brought a couple of girls that this young man had dated, that he had apparently been violent with. And I thought Mr. Coyne had just put him up just telling me that because he didn't want me to leave my contract.
Reluctantly, Harry Cohn let her go. Anne eagerly looked forward to her Tinkerbell ideal of marriage. Ann Miller and Reese Llewellyn Milner applied for their marriage license on Valentine's Day, 1946. The couple married 2 days later at the All Saints by the Sea Episcopal Church in Montecito, California. The day of the wedding, bridesmaid Marjorie Reynolds realized that Anne had not yet heard the lesson of the birds and the bees.
Marjorie was the one that really took me aside and told me, you know, what boys do to girls on their wedding night and what to use and all that. It just sounded so icky to me. It took all the romance out of romance, and consequently I didn't do it, and I was pregnant after the first 2 months of my marriage.
Reese became increasingly jealous of Anne's mother, Clara, and forbade Anne from visiting her film industry friends.
But Reese, unfortunately, had had this bad accident. A horse fell on him, and she didn't know that he had a plate in his head. And it's not his fault, but he was unpredictable and at times violent.
On June 27th, Anne wrote a letter to her mother to be read only in the event of her death. The letter chronicled 3 months of mental and physical abuse by her husband. However, as long as she was living, Anne was going to continue to put on a happy face.
I was very innocent, dumb really about men.
An argument broke out as the couple spent their 11th month of marriage at his Ojai ranch. A blow from Milner hurtled Anne down a flight of stairs. She was 9 months pregnant. On November 12, 1946, at Good Samaritan Hospital in Los Angeles, with a fractured lower back, Ann Miller gave birth to a baby girl. The baby died 3 hours later. The press reported the baby's death was due to an auto accident.
She was very depressed. She wanted that. And that, you know, is the only time that she's been pregnant.
Anne moved from the hospital bed to her mother's home and filed for a divorce. The settlement between Anne and her multi-millionaire husband was a mere $20,000. It was compensation for her medical bills and lost wages. While laid up for several weeks in a traction bed, she tried to make sense of her failed marriage and the loss of her child.
Mothers should never say to their daughters, when you get married, he's going to be your Prince Charming and it's going to be wonderful. He comes on a white horse and swoops you up and takes you away and be happiness forever after. Well, it didn't work that way for me. It was awful.
Less than a year after her fairy tale marriage, Anne needed a job. She won the role of Nadine Hale in MGM's Easter Parade. It had an Irving Berlin score and starred Fred Astaire and Judy Garland, but Ann Miller stopped the show.
Shaking the blues away, unhappy news away. If you were blue, it's easy to shake off your cares and troubles. Telling the blues to go, they may refuse to go, but as a rule they'll go if you'll shake them away. Do like the voodoos do, listening to a voodoo melody. They shake their bodies so, to and fro. With every shake, a lucky break, proving that there's a way to chase your cares away. If you would lose your weary blues, shake 'em away, shake 'em away.
Not entirely recovered from her injuries, Anne had to take painkillers and dance in a steel back brace. Easter Parade was a hit, and Ann Miller was the newest member of the MGM stable of stars. She quickly set about making herself at home.
The best musical of 1948, Easter Parade, and with us to help the opening, to help the premiere, one of the stars, dancing and singing stars from Easter Parade, Ann Miller. Ann, how about a plug for our home state? Where are you from?
I'm from Texas, sir.
You're from Texas.
She was a kick to work with. If she was dating, like say she'd be dating a doctor, and well, she would come in the morning and tell us all, regale us all with stories about what he tried that night, you know, if he was trying to seduce her. You know what he did? You know what he did last night, you know? So that kind of thing, and we'd all be on the floor.
One morning while reading the LA Times, Anne made a discovery that would change her life.
I saw his picture in the paper, and I held it up in front of my mother, and I said, you see that man? I'm going to be in love with him. And she laughed at me. I said, no, I'm going to meet him, and I'm going to fall in love with him.
She met him at my house. He was divorced. He was very attractive and very bright.
Soon the gossip columns were filled with sightings of the picture-perfect Ann Miller and her handsome new beau, William O'Connor. Rumors flew about a forthcoming wedding, but that would not happen.
It's too bad. He was a very strong Catholic. They had a civil divorce, but in order for him to remarry, the papers had to be signed by his ex-wife. And for whatever reason, I don't know, she wouldn't sign them.
My mother would never let me go steady with him. She said, until his wife signs those papers, you're not going to get tied to anybody, because she may never sign those papers. Well, unfortunately, she never did.
I think he was the love of her life, and it was just the wrong time, the wrong situation.
Though her love life was uncertain, the late 1940s and early 1950s were the pinnacle of Anne's career. The little Texas girl who had dreamed of becoming a star was now under contract to the most prestigious studio in Hollywood. But unlike other stars who tired of the constant social demands of fame, Anne reveled in the world of glamour and make-believe.
That's where you really know Annie never forgets what her mother said to her when she was 13 years old. You never walk out that front door that you are not Ann Miller. And the cameras could be turning.
What has Gable got for me, or Mrs. Johnson's blonde boy Van? I want a happy ape with no English drapes, a prehistoric man. Top hats, bow ties, he simply wore no ties. Bare skin, bare skin. He just sat around in nothing but bare skin. I really love bare skin. Some guys care a lot for me, but my excitement they can't ban. because I still await my primitive mate. We've had a date since the world began, my prehistoric man.
Gene Kelly, Frank Sinatra, Jules Munchin, Vera Ellen, and Annie and myself. And Annie, we all came in to rehearsals in the morning in sweatpants and whatever we're going to work in. Annie always arrived with a big black hat and high-heeled shoes with the ankle straps, and she was always dressed to the nines.
MGM never used Anne in the ingenue role she was accustomed to playing, but she shined playing the second female lead in films like Lovely to Look At with Katherine Grayson.
She has no jealousy. She just really wants to energize the room and make other people happy.
She may not have won the love of the leading man, but Anne excelled in delivering the comic quip.
I hear you knocking, but you can't come in.
And she always had a show-stopping number. Ann Miller called her time at MGM her golden years, both personally and professionally. However, she was in love with a man who could not or would not marry her, and she was working in a film genre that was about to become extinct. In 1953, Ann Miller delighted in playing the role of Bianca in Cole Porter's Kiss Me Kate. It would be one of the last great MGM musicals. During the mid-1950s, Anne traipsed around the world as an MGM Goodwill ambassador and accompanied friend Conrad Hilton to his many hotel openings.
There's a beautiful lady at the next table and a beautiful dancer. I'm sure you know her. Ann Miller? Yes. Would you do a couple of turns with Connie, please?
Oh, yes, and I'd love to.
Anne charmed royalty and heads of state. The Hollywood party girl became the globe-trotting party girl. But her heart remained in Los Angeles with Bill O'Connor.
I went out with all these glamorous people, but I was in love with Bill O'Connor. And I would never, a lot of them asked me to marry him, but I would never marry him because I was in love with Bill O'Connor. He literally, more or less, ruined my life.
Anne grew tired of waiting around for Bill O'Connor and in 1957 began dating a fun-loving Texas oil man named William Moss. He too told her that if she married him, she would never have to work again.
One of the wildest weddings I've ever been to. The wedding party arrived in La Jolla to a small, little, beautiful church, and as they came down the aisle, you would have thought it was Laugh-In. One-liners were flying from the guests.
On August 22, 1958, while bride and groom exchanged their vows, Bill O'Connor was frantically phoning Anne to stop the wedding. He had decided on her wedding day that he would leave the Catholic Church for her. It was too late.
Well, I wanted so hard, you know, to be happy, because each time I left my career, and I wanted to be happy.
It was clear from the start that Anne and Bill Moss would not have a happy marriage. He threw wild parties that would last for 2 or 3 days. Anne could not keep up. While in La Jolla celebrating their first anniversary, Anne had a sinking feeling that something terrible was going to happen and asked Bill to return to Los Angeles. It was August 27, 1959, and William O'Connor, the love of her life, had died of a heart attack.
I've never seen her that she didn't come through the storm with all the flags flying.
Anne's marriage to Bill Moss lasted 2 more years, but it really ended the day Bill O'Connor died. In 1962, while traveling with friends in Mexico, Anne married longtime friend Arthur Cameron. He was an older man and another Texas oil man.
He really was a father image to me. And He was a pretty good fella, but my mother liked him a lot.
Playing the role of Hollywood hostess, Anne settled into what she hoped would be her third and final marriage.
I heard all these voices down by this huge pool, singing and laughing, and girls mostly. And I looked at him, I said, Arthur, who are all these beautiful girls? Who are these girls? And he looked at me for a minute and he said, darling, these are my mistresses, but you're my queen. And I thought, is he crazy? I said, Arthur, either they go or I go. And he looked at me for about a minute and he said, well, pack your bags.
I don't know what happened, but when the annulment or the separation occurred, Mr. Cameron said, well, we're not even married.
Anne was furious and threatened Arthur with a $7 million lawsuit. He admitted to the marriage and she won her divorce. Instead of millions, Anne walked away with only a 20-carat diamond ring and a $50,000 trust for her mother. In 1963, Anne focused on reinventing her career, but her brand of vaudevillian entertainment had long since gone out of fashion.
Won't you come home, Bill Bailey? Won't you come home? I've cried the whole night long. I'll do your cooking, baby. I'll pay the rent. I know I've done you wrong. Remember that rainy evening I threw you out with nothing but a fine tooth comb. Well, I know that I'm the blame. Ain't that a dirty old shame? Bailey, won't you please? Bailey, won't you please? Bailey, come on home.
And I went right back into dancing again and wringing towels out with sweat and beating my head against the wall.
Her mother saved her money and worked very hard for Annie to be secure, and Anne worked like a dog.
In 1969, on the strength of her performance in a Houston stage production of Can-Can, Anne won the lead role in the Florida production of Jerry Herman's Mame, a show enjoying huge success on Broadway.
She knew how important it could be to her. I mean, it was a current show. It wasn't as if Annie was looking to spend her life doing summer stock.
The Broadway production of Mame had been a smash with Angela Lansbury. The producers laughed at John Boab's suggestion of Ann Miller until she opened in Florida.
She was a star. She was a star. There was no doubt after opening night in Florida that she would not come to New York.
30 years after her success in George White's Scandals, on May 26, 1969, Ann Miller returned to Broadway.
She was scared to death, but she didn't, I would say that she did not show it on stage.
When she appeared at the top of the stairs with her bugle, the audience just went. The show couldn't go on. It just stopped the show.
Anne brought something to the role of Mame that no one had before.
A bunch of guys are surrounding her while the chorus girls are out front doing their stuff, and Anne switched shoes. She switched to the tap shoes. So from the upper balcony you hear, she's gonna tap, she's gonna tap. And they were going nuts, and it was so fabulous.
Anne had single-handedly revived interest in a show that looked as if it would close just weeks before.
Anne brought back the pizzazz, the star quality.
There would be 300 or 400 people a night waiting outside the stage show. We had mounted police out there to try to control them, you know. And I think that Anne tapped into every frustrated chorus boy in New York. I mean, they came out in droves.
As New York celebrated the arrival of 1970, Ann Miller, her company, a menagerie of stuffed animals, suffered from a serious case of pneumonia. She would leave Mame 2 days later, and without her, the show closed. At 47 years of age, Ann returned to her mother's home in Los Angeles, tired, sick, and heartbroken.
Boy, am I hungry. What kind of soup is that?
Make way for the Great American Soup.
Can you give me that again?
Up at the Ritz, they pass the word to 42nd Street. Make way for the Great American Soup. Hey, mister, have you tried the soup that's good enough to eat? Shake hands with the Great American Soup. Feel that rhythm, guide your feet on the soupy road to romance.
We shot this in 2 days, and she danced from morning till night. And I wondered, you know, rest her legs or something. She said, no, honey, I gotta keep moving, gotta keep moving.
Let's face the chicken gumbo and dance. Who's got its noodles up in lights from Broadway to the Loop? It's the Great. I said the Great. It's the great, great, great American Soup.
Emily, why do you always have to make such a big production out of everything?
In the 1970s, when Ann wasn't hawking soup, she was on stage hoofing. She performed in summer stock, regional theaters, and television specials. The 50-something Ann Miller strove to maintain the glamour of Hollywood and never looked anything less than a walking 8x10 glossy.
She is like a kabuki dancer. It's all the whole makeup of the black wigs and the blue eyelids, and it's really a creation for the stage, and it's very effective.
Ann, I can hardly wait to do the show.
You'll be great, Nick.
I love the music.
You'll be great, Nick.
I love the sketches with you.
You'll be great, Nick.
In 1979, Ann joined up with MGM alum Mickey Rooney to do a national tour of a burlesque revival. The critics were not kind, but audiences loved it.
It dazzled people because they all grew up with both of those performers.
As Ann triumphed, Clara Miller suffered a stroke. She required constant medical care and was placed in a nursing home.
Annie was doing Sugar Babies at the time, but she was in constant touch with her. And of course, when she was home, she was there most of the time. And it was a very hard break for her.
In 1981, after 2 years of schlepping across the country, Sugar Babies opened on Broadway. That same year, Clara Miller passed away at the age of 89.
It was wonderful to see her and her mother together. Clara was so funny, too. Annie, you're common, you always were and always will be. She'd punish her, like, for smoking a cigarette. Annie said, oh, Ma. I mean, it was just like they hadn't grown up.
58-year-old Ann had spent nearly her entire life living with and caring for her mother. Without Clara's love and protection, Ann Miller had to grow up. She dealt with her grief by channeling her energies into the one thing that had seen her through every rough spot in her life, her work.
When she came in at night, she would come in early, get into her red zip suit, put on her tap shoes, and come out on stage and work her buns off. As she danced around the stage, she would maybe find a little screw loose or a little piece of plywood would have chipped off. And she had a pocket full of Kleenex. And she would drop the Kleenex wherever the spot was that needed taken care of. And the stagehands knew exactly what it was. They would wait till Annie left, and they would go around, fix it up. So the floor was always perfect for it. Anyway, she came in one night, and she went in, and the guys decided to play a joke on her. They covered the entire stage with Kleenex. And Annie came out to this ocean of stuff on the floor and got hysterical. Annie's humor, I don't know where it came from. One day after the second week, I said, Annie, we're off Tuesday because it's Passover. She says, honey, I don't do game shows.
Just for fun, come on over to the Mark Hellinger Theater and see Sugar Babies. I'll dance for you, and Mickey will try to grow.
After 3 years on Broadway, Sugar Babies went back on the road, and much to the surprise of everyone involved, the Rooney-Miller partnership lasted for 9.5 years. Sugar Babies earned Ann millions of dollars. Finally, she had the security her mother wished for, but it came with a huge physical toll.
The dancing that she does is very rigorous, And it's very hard on her feet in particular.
Anne began to take it easier in the late 80s and 90s. She bought a piece of property in Sedona, Arizona to build her dream home and spent more time socializing with friends. In 1998, Anne joined an all-star cast in the long-awaited revival of Stephen Sondheim's Follies.
Stephen Sondheim was very much involved with our production, and so he would come in and listen to each member of the company do their song and tweak it for them, give them ideas and things. And so this was Anne's day.
Then Anne had to deliver, you know, this huge number with all those lyrics, and none of us could breathe because we wanted her to get through it and be good.
Good times and fun times, I've seen them all, and my dear, I'm still here. Crushed velvet sometimes just pretzels and beer, but I'm here. I've stuffed the dailies in my shoes, strummed ukuleles, sung the blues, seen all my dreams disappear, but I'm here.
He just like cried, you know, and got up and gave her a big hug and said, "You're authentic. I have no note, you know, you're it. You're the person I wrote it for."
I've been through Reno, I've been through Beverly Hills, and I'm here. Reefers and vino, rescuers, religion and pills, and I'm here. Been called a pinko, commie tool, got through it stinko by my pool. I should have gone to an acting school, that seems clear. Still someone said, she's sincere.
The lyrics in that song, more or less, was my life. Except I never went on drugs, as I'm an athlete, and I was never a commie. But other than those two things, it literally was my life.
In 1999, Ann Miller shot a pilot for David Lynch, director of such cult favorites as Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks.
This is the great David Lynch, producer, director, writer, and I'm thrilled to be working with him.
I don't think anything would disturb her. You know, she always is seeing the big picture and rolling with the flow. She's so young at heart.
Acting in a straight role opposite a cast of young unknowns, 76-year-old Ann Miller fit in just as she did when a 13-year-old child pretended to be an adult.
There's nothing better than, you know, hearing about kind of the history of film through her eyes.
I just feel so lonely sometimes. I think about all these people, they're all gone. Well, I'm still here. I'm here. Oh, I'm so pleased to be here.
I've run the gamut, A to Z, 3 cheers and damn it, c'est la vie. I got through all of last year, and I'm here. Lord knows at least I've been there, and I'm here. Who's here? I'm still here.
For the web's best bios, log on to biography.com.